Hello and welcome to Bucks Podcast. Bucks fans, we are your safe space to get all your feelings and frustrations out. Holy cow, not the way we wanted this one to go. A first round exit, 4-1 to the Heat. The Heat are moving on to face the Knicks, who beat the Cavs in 5 games as well, just earlier in the night. The Bucks season is over, fellas. Let's get into the game. Not many changes to start from what we saw in Game 4. Wes Matthews, though, was healthy and was the first guy off the bench in both halves. He played quite a bit and played well and hit a huge three also in the fourth quarter. But this one came down. The Bucks had it. The Bucks were up. They blew a big lead. They had some coaching errors that we'll get into. A lot of stuff. This one is, I can't. This one went to overtime. The Bucks lose to 128-126. The Bucks had the lead, and the Heat. Well, the Bucks had a chance to call timeout and instead didn't get a shot off to either win the game in regulation and then again in overtime. So 2 times they had a chance to. Both times they could have called a timeout, set something up, and neither time did they do that. So there's a lot of coaching in this one that is going to be a main part of our frustration. Alex M says free throws. Absolutely. That's a huge part of his free throws tonight. Even, just a handful, literally 3 more free throws wins the game. Giannis was less than 50% on his free throws. Drew missed one. Chris hit 3 big ones after getting fouled, which was kind of an unbelievable foul that Miami let the Bucks back in it there late, but still not able to overcome this one. But Kyle, what were some of your big takeaways?
This was an exciting game for about 80% of the way. And then the Bucks just in the fourth quarter, it just seemed to be that they stopped caring almost, or stopped. They lost all focus really late into the game, especially in overtime. Chris Middleton wasn't getting the ball. And you're just kind of sitting there and you're like, Chris Middleton was the glue that was holding everything together late. And then you go away from him, or you don't make a purpose to get him the ball. It was really frustrating because so much of this game was fun to watch. It felt like a classic playoff game, but then it got a little bit annoying too because Matt Weiner, the play-by-play guy, started to hype up Jimmy Butler late, almost a little bit too much. Like it felt like it was a Heat broadcast. Where he's like, oh, it's Jimmy's coming there now. You can feel it. And it's like, man, shut up. Because he was right. Oh, it's so frustrating.
Terrell, like Kyle's talking about, we got what we needed from Middleton. We just didn't get him the ball at the right time when the Bucks needed it most desperately, especially there in overtime.
The problem was that they couldn't keep Middleton in the flow of the game. In the first quarter, he had 17 points. Second quarter, a big old goose egg. So he's like, well, I guess I'll just play 2 games here. I'll play the first half as 1 game and the second half as another game. And in the second half, what did he do? He hit 2 back-to-back threes that were huge in the third quarter. In the fourth quarter, where was Chris Middleton? We're still looking for him. So, yeah, if your guy has a hot hand, you got to go to him. And I would like to see more plays drawn up for Chris Middleton too. What's that?
Especially when Giannis is playing so tepidly too. Like you could see his energy there wasn't confidence with his approach to offense later in the game. You could see that Giannis was deferring a whole bunch. He wasn't making confident shots. Some of the shots he was taking late were things that you're sitting there and you're saying like, what is he thinking? These are not his shots. These are not the shots you take late. The mid-range pull-up. There was one point where the Bucks were up by I think it was 16, and he took a 3-point shot, and you're feeling like, okay, that's fine. You kind of want him to take that shot in that moment where maybe he hits it and he has some confidence, but you're also kind of sitting there and you're going like, you guys need this win. Every shot counts. You're up 16. You can't take that for granted, really. So it was just, there were so many moments with Giannis in this game where in the last quarter and a half where it was hard to stomach his play. And then some of the coaching mistakes in regards to the timeouts not being called, the shots not being taken. This was a really, really hard loss to stomach considering everything that came with it. And then for it to essentially be amateur hour in some respects, where it's like the mistakes that were made shouldn't be made in any game, and you're making them here. It's hard to reason. Somebody's going to have to probably have their head on the chopping block in some way.
We'll definitely get into that. I wonder how things are going to go now. Coach Bud, people were calling for his head, even if the Bucks had lost in the NBA Finals 2 seasons ago. Now you have a first round exit to what most people would consider a inferior opponent. You can look at Giannis's numbers, 38 points, 20 rebounds, and say, wow, he had a hell of a game, which is true in some respects, but the way that he played, shot selection the last few minutes, not guarding Jimmy Butler. I know some of these are coaching decisions, but if Giannis demands to guard Jimmy Butler, he's going to guard Jimmy Butler. And you, at some point, you'd figure they're going to go with size on him. Really loved what Wes Matthews did against Jimmy Butler tonight. Wes had a really big game for them off the bench. Pat Connaughton, too, in the first half was really important player. But with Giannis, you have that 38 points and 20 rebounds, but then you also have 7 turnovers and 13 missed free throws. 13 missed free throws in a game you lost by 2 in overtime. Man, that's really tough to stomach right now. And just not being able, the coaching decisions is so frustrating because it's like your players and everyone should know, if they score here, you call a timeout to set something up for the last few seconds. Advance the ball, give yourself a chance. Especially the way that Middleton was hitting tonight. Like he looked great. I was okay with living or dying by a Middleton 3 before at the end of regulation or something, even if it was a deep 3. But having the timeout, working out of a set in the out of bounds and getting nothing from that was really frustrating. And it makes me wonder about if someone's head being on the chopping block here, Kyle, like you said. It's a lot easier to change a head coach than it is to change a lot of the pieces that they have on this team. So interested to see how things go. My guesses would be that no move is made, but I know that Bucks fans, if I was on Twitter right now, as we are, and thank you for watching the show, if that's how you're watching us, are probably calling for his head right now because, like you said, that's inexcusable in a college game in some ways.
Well, it's not even that. It's the fact that it happened in back-to-back games. In game 4, Coach Bud didn't call a timeout when the Heat went on that run. It's like, what are you waiting for? You gotta stop this momentum. Call a timeout. And then in game 5, it's almost identical. You got to use your timeouts, man. You got frustration here.
You got one guy you're trying to stop at the end of regulation there, and it's Jimmy Butler. And you let the pass get into him at the rim for him to even get a shot off, let alone a layup that he makes. Yeah, he was fading away. It was a great shot. He caught it in the air and all this kind of stuff. So credit to Jimmy for that. But he's the one guy you have to stop, where it's like, if you don't stop him, you deserve blame. Like if one of the other guys makes a big shot, kind of like how shortly before that Gabe Vincent comes down and bangs in that big 3 on the run. I mean, all credit to Gabe Vincent. Nobody's going to look at that and blame anybody. We're going to praise Gabe Vincent for a beautiful shot at a clutch moment. But that Jimmy Butler, him even getting the possession, then you got 0.5 seconds left, a timeout left that you could advance the ball. You don't advance it. You throw it in. Giannis takes a dribble with half a second on the clock. Sorry, I'm like yelling. It didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, you got to throw that ball up. There was a lot of other frustrating decisions that were made. And then, yes, in overtime with the time running out and nobody having a good shot. Hey, Bud, guess what? You got a timeout. Call the timeout, bro. He doesn't call the timeout. What is going on? And then Grayson Allen dribbles out. Now, from Grayson Allen's perspective, you can kind of understand the psychology of it. He's sitting there and he's saying, like, I'm not the guy to be taking the last shot in a game-deciding game. Like, that's what he was trying to find, one of the guys. And that's just, there's no time on the clock. So it's a failure for the team as a whole. And as a fan, I've probably said it 6 or 7 times already, but this was just a tough one to digest.
I know there was a comment made about free throws and so many missed free throws tonight. Maybe that was the deciding factor. I would make the argument that yeah, the Bucks they missed a lot of free throws tonight, but they still made more free throws than the Heat team attempted. The Bucks made 28 free throws, the Heat attempted 17. So I would say, yeah, missed free throws were part of the game, but I think the biggest part of that game was only having 3 shots made in the fourth quarter by the Bucks. I don't know what
Yeah.
it is, but it's back-to-back games right now where you cannot hold a lead in the fourth quarter. And if you can't hold a lead in the fourth quarter, I don't think you deserve to be playing in the playoffs.
And this is it's a coaching problem. It really is, because how are you not finding the guys who are playing well for you late in the game? How are you not finding Chris Middleton late in the game? How are you not finding Brook Lopez after some of the success that he was having with those mid-range fadeaway shots and just some post play here? You had Brook Lopez almost on a ride to have another one of his really good games like he had in the previous one. And you just kind of you don't force the ball into the hands of the guys who are actually playing well. And it's extremely frustrating.
Yeah, Brook Lopez, 18 and 10 tonight, 3 offensive boards, hit 3 threes, 7-11 from the field. I felt they could have gone to him more. We talked post-game Monday. We thought that Bobby Portis would get more than whatever, 15 minutes he got last time. He had 17 tonight.
Best plus minus on the team, though, for Bobby in those 16 minutes. He was plus 16. He made one of the best hustle plays of the game on a saving of out of bounds ball where you're just like, boom, that's playoff basketball right there. Those are the kind of plays that are going to win the game. And then what? Bobby only plays 17 minutes? Are you kidding me, man? It's just,
Yeah, and you wonder how the playoffs are over now for the Bucks, but if they had been able to move on, what that would have done for Portis and Crowder and other guys in or out of the rotation based on matchups. And I'm sure that was the case. We saw Bobby fall out of the rotation against the Nets a couple of years ago, but then get back in for the final 2 rounds. But I mean, that's pretty easy to look at. He was a plus 16 with 0 points. Bobby didn't even score, but was a plus 16 in his 17 minutes. You wonder why he wouldn't get played more. Some more opportunities for Brook Lopez, feeding Chris Middleton at the end of regulation and overtime. It felt like a weird time to have Drew handling the ball a little bit more, especially when he's so gassed, and how much time he spent on Jimmy Butler throughout the series obviously was wearing on him, a huge deal. Just very surprised. Like you said, Giannis was not taking great shots. His shot selection was bad. He wasn't trying to get to the rim as hard as he usually does, especially with an undersized team. It was just so many things that we'll be thinking about for many months, I would imagine, as Bucks fans. And this is frustration really sums it up for me, of course.
I would kind of wish Marcus Johnson would have been calling this game, because late we would have loved hearing him get really pissed off at Giannis for one of his push shots, mid-range little push shots. That was it was one of the last shots of the game too in regulation. So it was just like, man.
A couple positives tonight that I like watching from the Bucks. The positives. Well, let's try to find something here. So the Bucks, they needed everyone tonight. They needed the whole committee to actually participate in a game. It couldn't be just a big 3 show. So we saw that from Patty Connaughton. We saw him on defense, and then shooting early. He started the game 3 of 3 in his first 3 shots. So, and then I did he was smart that he saw that Duncan Robinson was on him. He's like, I'm just going to take this guy to the rim. Shot clock winding down, easy left-hand layup. Wes Matthews, he hit a big 3 in the second quarter that really kept that run going in the second. And then Grayson Allen as well. He had that 4-point play in the third quarter. So, yeah, the team, the reserves, the bench, they were ready to play tonight.
Early in the game, there was a period before Pat really went on his nice little run there where the reserves hadn't scored at all for I think we were at 10 minutes left in the second quarter. So, the first 14 minutes of the game, Bucks reserves hadn't played at all, or hadn't scored at all, which, to be fair, that's been mostly starters minutes at that point. But you're right. Pat Connaughton had some really nice moments. He had a baller offensive rebound and I believe a score after that as well. So, yeah, Pat Connaughton, Grayson Allen, they showed up well in certain moments. Bobby showed up well in certain moments. Brook Lopez had a really solid game. And it's funny, you like you were saying earlier, Anthony, Giannis's box score looks pretty impressive, but man, he was not the dude late in this game. He didn't look like, someone you could trust, which sucks because that's supposed to be his time to shine.
Yeah, that's what you expect. That's what you expect from your superstars, from without a doubt a top 5 player at the very least. I would consider on most people's list for NBA players currently. Yeah, you want him to be the guy. We saw what he did 2 years ago. We saw 50 points. We saw 17 and 19 free throws in the clinching game 6 against the Suns. And I guess you would hope that you get better free throw shooting from Giannis at home. We talked about with playing at home in the playoffs, you're going to get more from your bench guys or your role players, like we talked about, and they did with Grayson and Pat Connaughton, and just really awful mistakes in the last few minutes with coaching, shot selection. Giannis wasn't himself throughout the series, but the Bucks still should have won this series, regardless of when he played and when he didn't play. I still think it was the Bucks series, but man, they ran into an absolute buzzsaw in Jimmy Butler, man. What an incredible series. I know it's hard to, kind of clap it up for him right now, but holy cow, man, what he's been able to do this series. Playoff Jimmy, as they say, is about as good as anybody. And we saw it this series, even with Drew Holiday on him. But another coaching thing that I'm frustrated about is not seeing more double teams on Jimmy Butler. West did a good job sparing Drew tonight at times. But I like size against Jimmy Butler, and Giannis is that guy. And I think if that means bringing Bobby Portis to guard Kevin Love or switching Middleton on a big or something like that, then I think you got to try those things. I think you got to try something different, because obviously what they're doing to stop Jimmy Butler, which usually works against most teams with Drew Holiday, wasn't working in this series.
Is there like a handicap in the NBA where you're not allowed to play certain players against other players? Like, it doesn't make sense logistically that Giannis wasn't trying to slap up Jimmy more and just disrupt his game throughout this series. So, and then there's no reasoning it in regards to trying to say that the Bucks don't have the capacity to match up if you're doing that. Like, that's just absurdity. They have all the pieces.
It's not like Giannis was in foul trouble either. He got his third foul in the third quarter with about 5 minutes left. It was that really cheap one against Lowry. So he wasn't in foul trouble at all in the first half and early in the second half. So yeah, maybe mix it up and put him on Jimmy Butler. But I did like the move where they put Wes Matthews on him and then they moved Drew Holiday over to Gabe Vincent for a little bit. That was smart. I also liked, for interior defense, Brook Lopez did an awesome job on Bam Adebayo by pushing him more towards the free throw line. He was taking free throw line shots that he felt really uncomfortable with. Like, I think Bam's game is more on the block, and I thought Brook did a pretty good job pushing him out tonight.
Yeah, the frustrating thing for me with Giannis not guarding Jimmy Butler, and whether it's the back injury or it's not, we've seen them in the playoffs 3 of the last 4 years, including this year. What didn't work the first time was Jimmy Butler dominated. And so the second time around, when the Bucks were able to beat the Heat, Giannis said, I'm guarding Jimmy Butler. And he guarded him throughout the series. And Bryn Forbes ended up outscoring Jimmy Butler in the series. And so we come back again. We've got Bucks number 1 overall versus Heat in the 8th seed. And we don't see Giannis on Jimmy Butler, even for the 2 games that he was healthy. I just am still pretty shocked we didn't see him in Game 4 or in Game 5, especially in Game 5. Why not spare Drew Holiday? Get him going offensively. Let him guard somebody else. And it's funny, Terrell, you talked about how Drew switched on to Gabe Vincent. How much more confident Drew was guarding him all of a sudden, not having to chase around Jimmy, but actually being able to play dictating defense, where as a defender, he dictates where the offense goes and not the other way around. Whereas when Jimmy had the ball and Drew was guarding him, Jimmy got to wherever he wanted to every single time.
Yeah, I mean, Gabe Vincent, he opened the game in the first half with 16 points. And there was a point there where Gabe Vincent thought that he was the man tonight and he was going to go off tonight. And he just started throwing up shot after shot. and he started missing. I was like, ooh, maybe he's another defender for the Bucks because he keeps throwing up these garbage shots. But yeah, man,
Budenholzer did fess up to the fact that he should have called a timeout at the end of regulation with half a second left, which is obvious. And I guess I don't know if it's much of a consolation or if it's just even more frustrating.
Yeah. Well, I guess I don't want him to give like the classic coach speak and not really acknowledge it, but I'm glad. Hopefully someone asked him directly, about not calling the timeout. And it just sucks because you'd think after not making the decision to call a timeout in the fourth quarter that in overtime you would, but that was not the case 2 times in a row. Very frustrating.
Eric Name, I'm looking at Twitter right now.
Sure.
He said he asked Budenholzer if, do you view this season as a failure? And Budenholzer gave a kind of a wordy response, but at the end of it he says, to me, we didn't get it done tonight, but to me, just disappointed, hurt, frustrated, I think is more characteristic of how we feel about tonight. So he didn't want to necessarily use the word failure, but come on, man. Of course it is.
He couldn't figure out a team that was undersized and full of guards and small forwards, and he couldn't get it done, and he can't figure out the matchups.
And unhealthy. Like this is a banged up Heat team as well. Yeah, lots of frustration. Lots of frustration. It's hard. Yeah, how can you not call the season a failure? Obviously, it's a little bit easier for us. We're not, in the Bucks circle. But you're the number 1 overall seed. You're the number 1 team in the NBA. You had the best record. You're playing with basically the same core you had as when you won the championship less than 2 years ago. Yeah, you can't be losing to an 8 seed, even if that 8 seed is a much better 8 seed than most teams. And they didn't know who they were going to be playing until 48 hours before the series starts, and Giannis gets hurt. Still, I think that the Bucks should have been able to kind of weather all those storms, and just a few different coaching things really made the difference here, which makes it the most frustrating that it wasn't just, oh man, Jimmy Butler did have a great series, but it's, I almost wish that was just the case. And it was just like, well, try again next year, but it's frustrating to have it on basically mental errors.
And dude, I'm sorry, but like when you're in positions this is the end. This is the end of the season. Everybody's been committed all year. You're not throwing your best options out. You're not trying to throw the kitchen sink at everything. Like it's just hard to wrap your head around. Budenholzer's got to go. He's out.
You're deciding. Terrell, where do you stand on that? Kyle, I'll come back to you. I want to know what Terrell's opinion is.
The way the modern NBA game is played nowadays, I still think Coach Bud I still think he fits the Bucks. If you're just going to get rid of a guy just to change it up and spice it up, I don't know if that's a good reason. But what we saw the past 2 games, when it comes to like clutch situations and not knowing what to do, man, that's a tough argument. I wouldn't be surprised. That's my answer if they made a change.
There's a part of me that just wishes they would have still be able to go get Quinn Snyder. I'm trying to think, or even, the Rockets hired Ime Udoka today. And it's just like, he's another guy who's really intriguing in regards to his kind of like a bravado. I'm trying to think of the right word, but like Ime Udoka, he's going to talk to the way he's going to approach players, talk players. He's going to carry a little bit of weight. He's just kind of got a forceful energy about him that I don't know, man. The mistakes that Bud made, you can't be making those mistakes and expect to I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see him being there.
I mean, and a lot of fans will say that the Bucks won they won the championship in 21 in spite of Coach Bud, not because he added something great to this team. Now, what you'll hear all the players talk about is how much they love Coach Bud and the way he takes care of their bodies in terms of rest, throughout the season, knowing when guys need days off, knowing when the team needs days off, and just managing players that way. So that's something that players will come out and that's what they love about him. But you don't necessarily hear the X's and O's genius kind of stuff. And it just makes me wonder, like the Bucks had 2 potential head coaching candidates on their bench the last few years, really. Darvin Ham, now coach of the Lakers. Charles Lee has been interviewed for a number of head coaching jobs over the last couple seasons. That will continue. He's going to get a head coaching job somewhere over the next year. So you wonder from the Bucks, is this we want someone new outside who's experienced and established as a coach, or do we want Charles Lee, who has been the right man of Coach Bud? And he's been with this team. He's grown with this team. The players love Charles Lee. He's going to be a head coach at some point anyway. Do they hold on to him? Nick Nurse is out there right now.
Boom.
Okay. So Kyle, you'd be a fan of Nick Nurse and what he basically helped build the wall that defended Giannis back in 2019. He had Kawhi on that Raptors team that ended up winning it all. And he just recently kind of a mutually parted ways deal with the Raptors, technically fired, I think, just so that way he could get his money. But that's who your guy would be, Kyle.
He'd definitely be one of them that I'd be considering. And off the, if you're just gonna give me a short list of guys right now, I mean, he was right before you said it, I was looking guys up and I was like, boom, Nick Nurse. That's an innovative coach who could take this roster and I think do some really fun things with it.
Terrell,
he would at least be trying to look at them, he's, and I'm not saying Bud hasn't looked at stuff in the past, but he didn't look at much this season. This season, he was pretty stuck in his ways. And it's just like, it feels like there does need to be a new voice in town.
Let me ask you this. When it comes to a coach, does the age of the team matter? Say the Bucks they're one of the top 5 oldest teams in the league on average age. Do you want a guy that can coach older players, or do you want a guy that can coach younger players, or is that even a thing?
I think you can have both. I think you can have old coaches and a younger team. I think you can have young coaches and an old team. I think I can work a lot of different ways. But you bring up a good point about developing younger players and maybe it's because this Bucks team is an older team with the same core we've seen the last few years, but the Bucks haven't been very hands-on in terms of court play for developing players, right? Like we typically don't see the rookies much at all their rookie season. Like we barely saw Marjan. We barely saw him the first few months. I mean, he got some time there, but a lot of it was because of injuries, especially Chris Middleton. The team didn't have Jay Crowder at the time. There's just lots of things there, but we haven't really seen this team go, all in on developing a younger player. I thought Marjan was maybe the player to do it because it seemed like he fit a lot of the things they were lacking last season, what they needed in that Celtics series last season. And he wasn't an 18-year-old rookie. He was, I think, 21 turning 22. So, a little bit more than some of your one and done. So maybe he was the chance for a rookie to get more regular minutes, and that wasn't the case. And I'm not saying that needs to be the case, but if you look forward and what kind of coach you want, maybe that you do start taking things like that into consideration.
I mean, you're looking for a coach who's planning on winning a championship next year, and if anything, just taking this current Bucks roster, which is completely fine, and as long as they're healthy, trying to tweak the approach, tweak the words and the motivation to get the most out of the players, and to put them in the best positions that maybe Bud's just been there too long. He can't see the players from a new paradigm. He can't help them expand their games in new ways, or maybe he's so route in how he views the players as a whole that he can't find the right adjustments to make, as other teams have digested what the Bucks have been over the last several years under Bud, and can now put up a good defense against that, to the point that they just got whooped by an 8th seed, a really good 8th seed, but that's not supposed to happen.
No, certainly not a 4-1 loss to an 8 seed.
First
Man.
time that a number 1 overall seed has lost in the first round of the playoffs in over 10 years. It was 2011. So, wow.
Okay, well then, see, when you say it
Goodbye,
like that,
bud.
then that makes me a little bit more certain that the Bucks are going to be. I mean, what could he even do to save his job at this point? Do you think now, even with you hearing you say that, it makes me feel like that tips my scales over towards 60-40 of him more than likely getting fired.
You need to make a change, and that's the only change that makes sense, really.
Terrell, you a Dig Nurse guy?
Sure, I guess. Why not? Honestly,
Look, Nurse would at least look at things like Giannis at center some nights when the matchups call for it, and he'd start those lineups. So we'd see variations in lineups in that. Maybe he just sticks with Brook because Brook's amazing. But then again, maybe he looks at Brook and he's like, why aren't we using this guy more?
Yeah.
You know?
Hey, hold on. We should credit Bud, though, for doing that, for saying, hey, Brook, you've been playing inside your whole career. Why don't you come to the Bucks? Start shooting 3-pointers. And look what happened to his game. His career, it's still going on. And I would say he's still in his prime.
You could argue he just had his best year, at least of the last 5 years. I mean, he was number 2 in Defensive Player of the Year voting, second in block shots. I think he blocked the most shots if you're not going by averages. So what he's able to do for 3, we know he still has the post-up game. He's got the fadeaway from the high, the high post, low post. He's a shot maker. He's an absolute weapon. To me, it surprises me that he is not an 18 to 20 point scorer and more of a 11 to 15 kind of guy. I don't know, maybe a new coach would get a little bit more out of him. But Brook is one of those guys, and now we'll start getting into the off-season stuff, which I didn't necessarily want to tonight. It's tough because it's like I didn't want to have my brain go to that point where we're talking about who's a free agent and what might happen. To me, it was like, just win at home on Wednesday, see what you can do in Miami on Friday. And man, they had it. They were there. They had a 16-point lead going into the 4th. Is that right? And then they blew. The Heat scored 8 straight to start the 4th quarter, and from there the Bucks were. I mean, the chase was on. They were able to hold them off for a little bit, but you put the bad shot making, no free throws, along with some bad decisions, and not taking those timeouts and getting something set up. It says that you don't trust your X's and O's, or you're just not aware of the situation. And neither of those things should happen. Neither of those things should happen. So I don't know. I feel like you might be right, Kyle. I think change is on the horizon. I wonder how soon the Bucks would make a move if they are to make a move. My guess is it wouldn't be right.
He shouldn't have even had the post-game press conference. He shouldn't have. 100, not at all. You're John Horst. I don't want you talking about our team anymore, okay? Go home.
Craziness. So Chris Middleton's got a $40 million player option. So I think that's kind of one of the first dominoes to fall for the offseason is, does Chris Middleton take his player option? Does he try and get, instead of 1 year for 40, does he try and get, 3 years, 100 million? I mean, I don't know what kind of, but with Chris Middleton's playoff performance, especially after being injured a lot of the season, and people being not so sure about him or wanting him off the team at times, and people thought that he was cooked. And you can hear this from Bucks fans on Twitter. They thought Chris Middleton was done. We see that that's not the case. Defensively, he is not what he was, even just a couple years ago. And that's frustrating that he can't be more of a weapon defensively as he once was. But offensively, he's given you as much as he's ever been able. Like tonight, we got exactly what we wanted from him, right? You got just even the percentages, 40% from 3, hit all 9 of his free throws, 10 of 24. So maybe, we want a few more shots, but I think the Bucks also could have done a better job of setting him up. There was also some times where he took well-defended shots that he thought he was going to get fouled, or he was fouled and it wasn't called, or things along those lines. But 33, 6-6 for Chris Middleton. I'm not really complaining about that, and especially when you throw his shooting numbers up there. He's still got it. He's still that guy. I think he can get money elsewhere if he wants it. I'm interested to see how that breaks down because, like I said, that's really the first domino to fall with the Bucks off season, with how things go with Chris Middleton.
If the Bucks have the opportunity to sign him, even at big money, they probably should be still doing that. The only way that would, like, if the Bucks don't re-sign Middleton for some reason, it's either because Middleton doesn't want to be there, or it's because they know something about his medical stuff that they're like, we can't be committed too many years. But at age, he's not even 32 yet, so realistically, we should be expecting a new 4-year deal for Middleton, where he's getting maybe a little bit less than the $40 million, but it still might be close to that.
Terrell, what do you feel about Chris Middleton? Back on the team, he's still got it. He's the man. He's the a great option to be that next guy, but from Giannis, but also that killer at the end of games. And we just didn't see him properly used tonight, perhaps.
Yeah, you got to figure out what fits the offense. And when it comes to Chris Middleton, he does fit the Bucks offense. You think about it, this Bucks team, they like to, they as in Giannis likes to drive and kick. And Chris is a really good spot up shooter. And when he wants to create his own shot, it's usually 2 dribbles, turnaround baseline jumper. Like that fits the offense. So yes, I think you have to pay a guy like that. And he's proven that he's worth the money. So when people say, "Oh, that's too much money for a player," like, oh, hold on. This is the NBA. Chris Middleton, when it comes to small forwards,
yeah,
would you say he's top 10 in the league in small forwards? So he should get top 10 player small forward money. So yeah, bring him back for sure.
I think, of course. I think you sign him to the deal that makes the most sense, and you sign him to big money now, but as the cap hopefully goes up over the next few years, that deal looks better and better each year. He proved that he can be the guy, and he's fits in great with this team. Like I said, I'd like a little bit more defensively, but there still could be some lingering knee issues, perhaps, that made him a little bit slow on that end. But he's as much as a killer as he's ever been, and also you have some change in the Bucks ownership. You had, was it Lazary who dropped out of the ownership group, and now Jimmy Haslam, one of the Browns or the majority Browns owner, is now involved. So if the Bucks do decide to go over the luxury tax to sign guys like Middleton, Lopez, you wonder with some of the new CBA changes how that will involve in keeping a guy like Javon Carter if he decides to opt out. So with Jimmy Haslam, though, entering that ownership group, you potentially have a lot more money to spend at the luxury tax to keep guys that are part of this core. Of course, Middleton and Lopez, mentioning them is imperative here. So interested to see how that all goes. I think without a doubt they bring back Middleton. I think you give him to an extension.
Wait a minute. Well, wait a minute. So. Wait, he's got a player option? Is that
Middleton for $40 million was my understanding.
Okay, but he's still got another year after that too. Wait a minute. Oh no, that's his cap hold. That's his cap hold. Sorry. Okay. He'll be you're right. He'll be an unrestricted free agent. Yeah, next year. If he doesn't accept the player option.
Someone disagrees that Middleton is Jamal Jones disagrees that Middleton is top 10.
Are you going off of 1 year where he played 25% of the games?
That's fair. Man, tough one. Was not ready for it to end tonight. I thought you at least push it to Miami on Friday and see what you can do there. And then if you win in Miami, then pressure's on the Heat really, to some degree, as you're still the 1 seed at home in your building. But to fight back after that.
At what point in the come down of this game did you guys actually start to feel like crap?
It's like so
this
funny.
might be a loss.
At at the beginning of the fourth quarter, I wrote down in my notes, first thing before they even started the fourth quarter was no meltdowns, no meltdowns. So it was in my head there, but I think it was about 4.5 minutes to go. And the Bucks had just hit their second field goal of the quarter, and you just felt like Jimmy had sat for a bunch of the fourth quarter, and the Heat still were just right there, and you felt like Jimmy was about to get hot, and then he started to get hot, and the Bucks didn't make any adjustments. They didn't double team Jimmy Butler. They didn't throw Giannis on him. They didn't try a smaller lineup with more switching earlier. That was doing their best to keep Drew on Jimmy, and we saw that wasn't working. That Drew Holiday's an amazing defender that works against most point guards and shooting guards, but Jimmy Butler is absolutely a different animal.
Eric Name did ask Giannis, or somebody asked Giannis, if he would have liked to have covered Butler more in the series. And Giannis said yes.
Giannis,
again,
really,
something that we like. These admissions are not necessarily. I'm uncomfortable hearing this stuff because
so what you're saying
you didn't
is
notice this before.
So what you're saying is Giannis was asked by Eric Name, the reporter, whether or not he felt he should be on Jimmy Butler more, and he just said yes.
Yes.
So that once again points to coaching.
Yes.
That's frustrating. Yeah, I'm the percentage is climbing. I'm almost expecting Coach Bud to be fired. I would maybe by Saturday. I don't know. Friday news dump. Very possible. I think they'll get their exit interviews and 1, 2, 3 Cancun, as they say.
They're gonna respect him by not obviously firing him tonight or whatever, but because he did win the championship for the team and whatnot, but they've got to let him go quick because you got to go get another coach.
Well, I didn't think this was going to end so soon. I'm sure we'll be back with another episode to talk about some off-season stuff and maybe just talk about the NBA in general. But as far as the 2022-2023 NBA season for the Milwaukee Bucks, it has ended. Sad times. Sad times. It's been a pleasure doing this with you guys, though. I love you both. It's been great.
Oh, ditto, dude. This has been so much fun. It's made watching the games even more fun, being able to get together with you guys afterwards. So thank you for tolerating my inconsistent schedule as a part of this throughout time in Hawaii and whatnot, and for covering the last few games while I was off doing weird spiritual stuff at a pyro festival in Ohio. And man, there was a lot to like about this season. It was fun, but it's just, man, it wasn't supposed to end this early. So to everybody that's listened, thank you so much this season as we get going. And of course, like Anthony was saying, we're going to be doing some more fun stuff over the off season, but obviously we'll be looking towards next season and any possible changes that could be coming for the Bucks. I really don't want any sweeping changes. I just want a new coach who's going to have a new voice to help inspire these guys, get them amped up, and get them really charged up in a good way for the playoffs next season. If there's anything, at least a first round exit, man, that's a kick in the nuts to these guys' ego. So you would hope that spurs their development in the off season. Maybe Giannis learns how to shoot free throws consistently for the first time in his career. I didn't actually cuss, so you don't need to cut that out, but
thanks for telling us.
Yeah, no problem.
Terrell, any final thoughts?
I had a blast. I didn't know what I was getting into when you guys proposed this idea, but you know what? Let's try something new. Let's have a little fun with it. And yeah, we decided on something that we were good at, that something we all liked was Bucks basketball. And I think we're ready for year number 2 next year. So big shout out to a couple listeners, a couple regular people that listen to us, Peter O, Sheboygan, Tyler W out in Washington, D.C., and Paul Norby right here in Madison, Wisconsin.
Nice shout out. Yes. And to anyone who made a comment, even some of you nasty Heat fans, I appreciate you guys being involved, getting involved with the show. We hope you check us out next year. And I will be rooting for Jimmy Butler to just go on an absolute tear the rest of these playoffs. So I wasn't ready for year one to end so soon, but I'm already excited about what the offseason and next year might hold. Kyle and Terrell, thanks so much. I couldn't have two better people doing it with me, and I appreciate you guys giving me all of your free time to do something like this. And once again, all of our listeners, you guys have been so good. Please rate, review, subscribe, all that jazz. We really appreciate you guys. And we'll be putting some content out there even in the off season, and we hope you stay tuned, and we'll let you know when we got that coming out. But thank you all again so much for a great season. Go Bucks.
Wait up, buddy. Anthony, what else do you do? What other shows you got going on right now? You're doing a bunch of stuff. Why don't you tell us about that?
All right, I got a show about. I'm teaching some D&D nerds about sports, and they're teaching me about D&D.
What's the name of that show?
That one's called Athletics Check, and that one will be coming out to you soon. We've already got an episode or two, in the hatch. And then Ant and Rabbit is one of my favorite shows. Check out Frony Radio on YouTube here. You can see a bunch of my other shows. Me and my buddy Jameson talk about movies, anything pop culture. You might hear some sports there. He's a big movie review guy. He goes to a couple hundred films a year for free because he's the man, my main movie reviewer. Check out Real Reviews too, Jameson Rabbit. But Ant and Rabbit, all sorts of stuff got going on. But if you check out Frony Radio, good call. You guys want to make any plugs?
Well, I just noticed that you've got my doppelganger on that Lord of the Rings show or Dungeons and Dragons show that you're doing. Because I was like, who's this blonde dude with like a beard who's got some weird spirituality? He's got like a zodiac thing in his background. And I'm just like, why are you trying to replace me? Huh?
I appreciate you checking that out. Hell yeah.
So. But what's that guy's name?
That is
Kyle.
Michael Feuerbach.
Michael, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, he's a handsome guy. You tell him another handsome guy said so.
I will. Terrell, any final plugs?
I got nothing. I live a boring life, so I'm probably just going to lock my door and turn off the lights and see you guys next year, right?
All right. Time to cry ourselves to sleep. We'll catch you next season.
Terrell's going to go hibernate for the summer.
Yeah.
He's a hairless bear.
Oh, goodness. Well, thank you all again so much. And we'll be pumping some stuff out over the summer. Make sure you stay tuned to Bucks Podcast. Thank you all. We'll see you soon.
Mahalo.